Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for tuning in across the USA. We are live. We are in color. And my next guest, to change directions a little bit, is my good friend and colleague, Scott Atlas, who is one of the world's health experts. He's the guy who got it 100% correct when COVID hit, gave Donald Trump great advice, which Donald Trump often took, not always, but often did. And I wanted to talk to him about kind of, where we stand today with public health. What are the lessons that we should have learned, but probably have not learned? And there's nobody better to ask than Scott Atlas. So, Scott, thanks so much for joining.
Happy to be here, Steve.
So, Scott, you are with the Hoover Institute?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and one of the most esteemed think tanks. So I'm jealous. That's a great place to be. But you also served the president very ably and wisely during COVID, and here we are 5 years later. And sometimes I worry that people have not learned the lessons. We did a lot wrong. As you know. You were one of the first people. You and I and Phil Kerpen, put out the alert about how dangerous lockdowns would be. So can you kind of summarize where we are today? And before you answer that question, I'm going to tell you something that is just disgusting, which is that my alma mater, University of Illinois, had their Man of the Year award a year ago, and they gave Anthony Fauci their Man of the Year award, which is just makes me embarrassed.
Well, I share the embarrassment, Steve, because you may not know I'm a graduate of University of Illinois.
I did not know that. You're an Illini?
Yes, I am. So I still follow college basketball, but I don't follow when they give awards to people like Fauci.
Yeah. So where are we?
Well, the problem with the aftermath of COVID is we have, as a society, sort of, instead of learning the lessons and making sure people understood the truth, we have sort of turned the page, I feel. And I'm very fearful that people are still misinformed and therefore susceptible to having this debacle happen again. And there's a reason why we've turned the page as a society, because the people in powerful positions and the influential people were so wrong about the lockdowns, about the school closures, about masks being effective, about forcing vaccines, that they're humiliated and they're interested in turning the page rather than admit the error. And again, the issue is most people are left with lack of information about the data, because the data showed that the lockdowns not only did not stop the spread or protect people, but they literally killed millions of people, particularly the poor.
Right. Yep. And that is exactly why we need to make sure we don't repeat these mistakes again. Just before you came on, Scott Atlas, I was talking about what's happened in New York and New Jersey over the last 10 years, and very dramatic population losses in New York and New Jersey. Now, that predated COVID, but it sped up dramatically during COVID, where people just left New York, and at least half of those people never went back.
Right. And a big driver of that, Steve, as you know, is really not economic, I believe. It's more, although that is a driver, but the real cause was people saw their children being destroyed, because we had a disease, COVID, which was extremely low risk for anything serious for healthy children, minuscule, yet they closed the schools. And this is very destructive, not only with learning loss, which received some attention, but with the psychological harms, massive impacts on kids who need socialization, who need their peers, who need interaction. And we saw dramatic spiking of depression, anxiety, hospitalizations for severe weight, eating disorders, self-harms, kids slashing their wrists. It's very, very sad, tragic what we did to our kids as a society.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
What I bought? A new Blink Mini 2K Plus smart security camera. What I got? 2K clarity sharp enough to see every detail of home when I'm away. Plus audio like I'm in the room, not with my bestie traveling to another city. Plus easy plug-in setup to install faster than skipping through podcast ads. But you'd never skip ads, right? Plus, I got all of this for just $49.99. Blink Mini 2K Plus. Mini camera, max performance. Shop now at Amazon.com/Blink.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So what would you say, for our audience, we have a nationwide audience on this show, and I want to know, what would you say are the 3 or 4 most important lessons that you think we either have learned or have not learned, but what are the takeaways from this tragic governmental response to COVID?
Well, number one lesson to me is we live in a free society. We can't have mandates and complete takeover of individual rights that are supposedly guaranteed in the Constitution. But when rights are guaranteed and then they can be taken away under any kind of declaration of so-called emergencies, then they're not guaranteed freedoms. Right. We can't have a society like that. And the big way to get people to do things, a second lesson that people in leadership positions must understand, is that you inform the public. You don't need to mandate anything. You show them the facts. Yes. You make sure you're giving the data. We're intelligent people. We trust people. We must trust people in a free society. And, the third lesson is
Hold on, just 1 second. Hold on. Because this is really so important what you're saying. And I want to just put a little asterisk behind your second lesson, which is, what my buddy Phil Kerpen has said, and I think you've said this too, is the one thing you definitely don't want to do is panic people, which is exactly what the government did.
People are calmed by knowing that in a leadership position, the facts. You understand what's going on, even if you don't know what to do. And in fact, when I went to Washington to help advise President Trump in August of 2020, the first thing I kept saying was he has to get back on there and give the data at his press conferences. They had stopped those press conferences, if you may remember. And I said, even if you don't know what to do, you must tell the public, this is the data. We're aware of what's going on, reassuring them rather than somehow creating some uncertainty, because uncertainty causes fear, and fear causes a really erratic behavior.
Well, the problem is, that happened back then, because you were there, was Fauci was contradicting everything Trump was saying, and that's why he became a national hero.
Absolutely. Fauci and Deborah Birx, who had sort of a lower profile, but she was in charge of the task force. Right. And the task force in the White House wrote all the guidance to the state's governors. So the governors were getting the so-called official federal policy from the task force, not from President Trump. And you may remember that this was, of course, an election season, a very volatile public. Yep. And that also added to the mix of the sort of misinformation. But another point I want to make about lessons is that we had censorship by the media, by the social media. We had Twitter, we had YouTube, we had Facebook taking down posts, not just regular people, but they took down my posts as advisor to the president. You'd think the public should hear what the president's advisor is saying during an emergency. And as I pointed that out in the White House, the censorship, my friends in the White House told me, well, they also took down President Trump himself. Yeah. So, we have a society where really they were obscuring information. And the reason people censor information is not just to shut someone up. This is very important. They censor people to fool the public, to make it seem like there is only one opinion here, there is only one interpretation, and everyone else is not just an outlier, but is dangerous. It was sort of the tools of propaganda.
Sure. So one of the things you were very effective at, I was talking to Governor DeSantis not long ago, and he was saying one of the people he called for advice, because remember, governors, one of the things Trump did that really is underappreciated, in my opinion, Scott, and I'm talking to the great medical expert, Scott Atlas, is he made a very wise decision to let the states decide what their how they would respond. And you had,
100% agree. Yes.
Yeah. And the red states opened up in general, and the blue states stayed shut down. But we learned from what each other was doing. And what did we learn from the states?
Well, what we learned was that the states that opened earlier did better, and this was quantified by your friend and colleague Phil Kerpen. And reality is that the states that opened better, the states that opened the schools, the states that opened businesses, did better with regard to not just illness generally, or at least as well with the illness, but also economic destruction and devastation. And that economic destruction is severe because it's not just money, it's lives. Lives are lost when the economy tanks.
So, Scott, we got 20 seconds left. Can you tell people, you wrote a book about this, did you not?
Yes, I did. I wrote a book on the experience in the White House called The Plague Upon Our House.
Okay, well, Scott Atlas, thanks so much for joining, folks. This is The More Money Show, and we will be right back.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.